If you're in the market for a modern lantern, the BLF LT1 sets the gold standard for what a lantern should be. But Sofirn didn't rest there. They introduced the new LT1S. Let's talk about the differences. So the LT1 has been a favorite of mine for years now, and honestly, it's just a great lantern, and I can't ask for anything more from it. Or maybe I could. That's where the LT1S comes in. It takes probably one of the biggest problems with the LT1 and solves it, and that is just physical size and weight. This thing is clearly half the size and less than half the weight, and that's because the LT1 basically was a tube with 4 18650s in it, and then the lantern kind of sat on top and it had the driver here and all the LEDs, and this was mostly empty. But the LT1S does something really cool. It uses one 21700 battery, and it stuck it in between all the electronics and emitters for space savings. This is like a huge thing, guys. This makes the lantern much smaller, much more compact, and really not that much less runtime, because these 18650s, at least the ones I have in here, are 2600 milliamp hours, and the 21700 that the LT1S comes with is a 5000 milliamp hours. So it's roughly half the milliamp hours, but it's not 1/4 like you'd think. Additionally, this old design required button-top batteries because they had to come in contact with this ring right here. The LT1S has no such requirement and comes with a flat top, or you can use your own button tops if you wish. Before we get into other features I like about the LT1S, let's talk about what comes in the box. You get a cardboard box here that has a USB-C charging cable, and this lantern charges right here with a little flappy doodle, and there's a USB-C under there. I don't know if you heard that, but when I flipped it up, it kind of made a little Tupperware burp sound, so that's a good sign. Comes with additional O-rings, comes with a pretty thick manual, but don't be misled. This is really a one-pager that's translated like 50 times in different languages. And it had a little tag on it to remind you to remove the little protection disc so that the lantern would turn on the first time. Unlike the old LT1 that used Endural as an interface, the new lantern uses Sofirn's custom interface, and it's not without its faults. I find it a little more confusing than it needs to be, but I find it less confusing than Endural would be for non-Endural users or enthusiasts. So let me state it this way. If you know Endural super well, then this Sofirn might be slightly more confusing to you because it's not Endural. However, if you are a completely new user to flashlights and a non-enthusiast, I think that this UI they have in here is a little easier than Endural is. So operating the UI is relatively easy. You just click it to turn on, and there's 4 main power levels. But there's also kind of a hidden moonlight, so if you turn it off and press and hold from off, you get this lowest moonlight. Now, it also has the same color ramping feature that was so awesome about the original, and the way you get to that is turn it on, go to a level you like, then click, hold. So 2 clicks with a hold on the second one. So click, hold, and you can see that it ramps between a very cool white, and if you do the double click hold again, it goes to a really warm white. Now, I measured these different emitters on my Sekonic, and what I found was that the warm white went down to about 2500 Kelvin, so that's really incandescent, nice and warm and cozy, and it was completely neutral at that warm 2500. Now, when I went cool, it got up to about 5500, which is about as high as I normally want to go. 6500 to me is just too cool, so this is a little cooler than 5000, and it's above BBL. It's about 100 points above BBL, so a little bit on the green side. Now, here's the funny thing. If you go mid-ramp, so if I go click hold and go about in the middle like that, you can easily get about 3000 K here and totally rosy. And why does it get rosy if you're mixing that green kind of bluish light with the neutral warm light? And the answer is because you're tint mixing. And if you want to know more about tint mixing and delta UV and CCT and what all this stuff means, click on the link above right here. I got a great example of how that all works. So without getting too complicated here, I find that if you're all the way warm, it is just a beautiful, warm and cozy light. If you're somewhere in mid-ramp, it's just a gorgeous, rosy light. And then if you're fully on the cool side, that's actually probably better that it's green because it just means more output. So I really applaud what they've done with the emitters. Additionally, the emitters are more spread out than the original. If you look at the original, and let me kind of ramp down a little bit here, you can see there's a kind of a spike right here and another spike on the diffuser. That's because there's 4 cool emitters and then 4 warm emitters, so for a total of 8. On this light, it has 18 warm emitters in an array with 18 cool emitters in an array and then 4 additional red emitters. This thing is just chock full of emitters, and it really shows, and it lets them do something that this one could never do, which I'm going to show you now, and this is probably my favorite feature of all. The biggest complaint I have about the LT1 is if you're in a non-overhead environment like outside camping, good, it gives you 360-degree light, and that's great for lighting the campsite, and everything's great. But in a house, which is where I primarily use this thing because I'm not camping that often, I find that it's always in my face, right? This light is glaring at me. So people have designed kind of barriers to kind of prevent one side from glaring at you. Well, the LT1S kind of solves that because when you turn it on, you can double click and it'll turn one side on or the other. So just look for the logo and you can see this side is the side that's on right now and this side is off. And if I click again, it goes to the front and now the back is off. And if I click a third time, then we go to full 360 again. So click back only, front only, and 360. I love this feature. Even though it's not completely blocked out from your vision, it is way less glare than the original LT1, and I really enjoy it. And as if that wasn't enough of an improvement, you also find that it's got a power reading right here in 4 little LEDs. Each one of them is 25%. So right now I'd be somewhere between 50 and 75% full. That's, I think, much more usable than the blinking feature that you find with Enduro. And lastly, they added a red channel. So if you do a triple click, 1, 2, 3, it turns to red. You press and hold, and it'll cycle through different red modes. Even though this red channel is a really cool addition, I find that when it gets bright, it is really bright. And at its lowest, it's really not that low. I want it much lower. I find that, what I would use red for, which is dark eye adaptation, or maybe just having on kind of a low level night light, that this lowest red is way brighter than I want. So final thoughts on this light. I really see this light, the LT1S, as an improvement in almost every way over the LT1. It has the same kind of hanger to hang it on a branch if you're camping. It doesn't have all the same tripod mounts, but then again, I just don't think I ever really used them or needed it. So I don't mind that at all. It's way lighter, way smaller. I find the interface actually a little better. Still, I think it could be a little less confusing at times, but I don't think that it is needlessly confusing. And with the fact that it has more LEDs spread out, I find it more pleasant. The fact that I can turn one side on and one side off answers kind of a gripe I've had for a long time. And if clearly it's smaller and lighter weight, so the only thing that the LT1 has probably better than the LT1S is the fact that it has more runtime. But as I said, this uses a 21700, so it's only about double the runtime as opposed to quadruple like you might think. So all in all, if I had to buy one of these, I definitely recommend the LT1S. However, if you already own an LT1, I don't think you need to run out and get this. I mean, it's better, I guess, but I just don't see it as revolutionary. I see it as evolutionary. Thank you for watching this review, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.